Hello, my name's Richard Palmer and I run this business called Shore Train Sales Training. We've just embarked on a journey of interviewing sales directors for our new podcast, The Challenges of the Sales Director Beyond the Numbers, where we're looking into the role of a sales director within a business and particularly trying to inspire those people who want to become that kind of strategic sales leader within the businesses they work with and elsewhere. So, we're starting to put these together. The first one we've just released now, and you can watch it after this video. It's with Billy Thurlow from Rawlings Packaging Group. Excellent interviewee, and you'll really enjoy this. So sit back, watch the podcast. If you're a sales director and you want to take part in this podcast, we're welcoming guests from all sorts of walks of life. Come along, have a chat, share your expertise. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you enjoy the podcast. This is the first episode in our new podcast from Shore Train, Beyond the Numbers, the Sales Director's Challenges. And today I'd like to welcome Billy Thurlow. Billy is the Sales Director at the Rawlings Group, based out of Bristol, amongst other places. And I'd like, first of all, to start with Billy. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do about with your business and a little bit about yourself as well.
Sure, thanks, Rich. So business is Rawlings Group. We're a packaging business. We have 3 different businesses within that group. So the largest part of the portfolio is a glass packaging business. So we sell wine bottles, water bottles, beer bottles to the food and drink sector. We have an engineering business in Devon, which provides our clients with filling lines, brew houses, wineries, that kind of stuff. And we also have a paper bag business over in Westbury in Somerset. So within the group, we can cater for a lot of packaging needs for our clients and hopefully be a kind of one-stop shop and expert on the things that they need for their product going into shops, retail, wherever.
Fabulous. And ideal, who's your ideal client? What do they look like?
Ideal clients, so it could be a retailer. So some of our biggest retail clients on the bag side of the business are people like Shoe and Trini, the high street stores that need bespoke printed packaging, high quality, cotton bags, jute bags, paper bags, really sustainable kind of background. So that's really important to a lot of our clients. On the food and drink side of it, we have clients like some of the biggest cider producers in the UK who will buy glass from us, but they'll also buy rigid boxes for the bottles to go into, one-way kegs so they can export their ciders without having to try and get the stainless steel kegs back into the UK. So lots of different things, really. We're also looking at bag and box and pouches. So, for instance, we deal with a lot of startup gin brands, for instance.
Nice.
So we can help them design a bottle, decorate it, make it really stand out on the shelves. And then some of them we've encouraged into a subscription model. So their consumers can reorder the product in a pouch, which is delivered through the letterbox. They keep the bottle and they keep refilling it. So
fabulous.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways of making the models work. And those subscription models really successful for people.
And different.
Yeah, something
different.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love that. Excellent. So the idea of this podcast is really more to do, less to do with the business itself and more to do with you and what challenges you face as a sales director. And the idea being here that we help you to gain, or help the audience to gain more knowledge about what it means to be a sales director, challenges you go through, the difficulties, but also the good parts and what's enjoyable about it. And also encourage those people that want to get to the kind of position you're in and help them to understand what they need to do in order to get there. Sure. So we're going to go through a number of different things. I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to have a good chat about it and see where we go. Right. What I'm really interested in from a sales director's point of view, because you get to that point in your career where you've stepped out of the direct sales operation, and now you're heading up the team, and suddenly the world needs to become more strategic. And you need to be planning for the future as opposed to just doing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So how do you balance the long-term strategic planning stuff with like the short-term tactical stuff on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it is a challenge, especially, in our business where we're quite lean in terms of resource. We're about 100 people over three businesses. So there are always last minute things coming up. There's always problems with clients. There's always deals to be signed off. There's contracts to put in place. So you're trying to get that balance between looking 6 months, 2 years down the line and also dealing with the stuff that your team is facing now is always a challenge. I'm not necessarily saying I'm the best at this, but things I've learned over the years about segmenting time. So, trying to block off thinking time in the week so that it's purely on where we're going, what's around the corner. For us at the moment, we're just closing off our first half. We're slightly behind where we'd like to be. So, for about the last 4 months, I've been looking at the second half of the year and where we're going with that. What team's going to be in place, who's leaving, who's retiring, who's coming in, how we're training them up,
Yeah.
how we're covering the busy sectors and maybe pulling resource away from the quiet sectors. So that's always on my mind. So that's a day-to-day thing. But I think the longer term stuff, we plan as a leadership team. Every quarter we have a day out of the business to literally think about that 3-year goal and the 10-year big kind of hairy plan, I suppose. But personally, you need to do that as well. And that only happens if you block that time off.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Segmenting that time and taking yourself away, because I would
Yeah.
imagine there's a number of immediate demands on your time.
Yeah.
Every time that phone rings and it's a member of your team or a customer
Yeah.
or something, suddenly you're
Yeah.
distracted away from
Sure.
the strategic stuff.
Yeah. It's like which monkey is being put on your desk today, isn't it? So how do you
Yeah,
avoid that?
absolutely. So
Mm.
so tell us a little bit about your team themselves. I mean, how big a sales team do you have?
So across the three businesses, we've probably got 30, 40 people in commercial teams. So the biggest part of the business, the glass business, we have probably 10 technical account managers. So they are specialists in advising our clients on the right kind of products to use with their particular products and their filling processes. So all that's got to be kind of thought about quite heavily. So they're real experts in that. So they're generally office-based, phone-based, dealing with clients, dealing with existing orders, the technical
Yeah,
queries on that stuff, but also incoming inquiries into the business as well. And we have a process we wrote up to be quick to respond, really enthusiastic, and go through the right questions, which you kindly helped us put together about 2 years ago. So that's
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
we recently expanded the team. We have 3 or 4 BDMs up and down the UK working on different parts of the business. So some of them are group BDMs. So
Mm,
we have a guy called Owen who works really well with the paper bag business, helping get contracts moving with big retailers. But equally, he'll be dealing with spirit companies and things like that as well. We have Carl, who's up and down the UK dealing with brewers, so particularly in beer and cider sector and spirit bottles. So, those guys are really out hunting down that new business and
sure.
looking getting the time face to face with those big contract clients that are going to be working with us, for 3 years at a time.
Mm,
So we've we've segmented the sales team. We have the client service team who deal with repeat orders, have the technical team that deal with new inquiries coming into the business and existing clients. And then the BDMs are really looking for those big wins, hunting
yeah,
down that new business.
got it. So when you were hiring these BDMs, what did you look for? What kind of qualities did you look for?
So I think I mean, we didn't really go into my background, but I've been managing sales teams probably for 20 years now. Before that, I kind of went through every role myself. So from telesales to field sales, account management, national account management, and then field sales management. And so I found that really useful. And I've worked with and recruited so many different people.
Mm,
So I think I tend to spot the guys that I know I'm going to work well with, and maybe that will be the same for everyone. But certain traits in their characters, they're questioning about the role, they're questioning about the clients,
mm,
they're asking about how we measure and how we reward and stuff like that. So all the things that they're curious about, the more curious they are in those interviews, that you're onto the right thing because they really want to know. They're not just going through a process and hoping it wins.
yeah,
Um, so those that listen as well, those that really ask questions and listen, that's really important to me. Um, I'm
we know
entirely
that.
turned off by those suppliers that come and try and sell to us as a business and talk
Absolutely.
to us for 20 minutes, without asking a question. So
Well, we all know that sales reps who are curious, who listen well, who want to know more, who want to understand. If they're doing that in an interview situation, we know they're going to be probably doing that in front of the client, and that's core fundamental skills of people who are incredibly effective at the sales role.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we meet lots of salespeople that don't have those kind of skills. That they
Yeah.
are just they're pitchers, they're presenters,
Yeah.
as opposed to listeners. And sometimes as well, I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes you just get that gut feeling about
Yeah.
someone, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And you know, how do you write that down? How do you train that? It's something that you just recognize when you recognize it, isn't it? And how do
Yeah,
you even try and attract that?
yeah,
You still have to go to market with a wide funnel of we need salespeople, we need technical, we need BDM, we need this knowledge, we need these skills. But it's only when you're with them in the room that you're starting to pick up on those vibes that make it
absolutely.
work or not. You know,
Yeah,
and
I've always worked on the basis that it's personality first, skills second.
yeah,
We can teach all the skills. It's just
yeah,
how do they interact with human beings,
yeah.
and that's the key element to me. So once you've got these people on board, how do you
Mm.
motivate them? How do you inspire your team? What are the techniques that you use to keep everybody sharp and focused?
Yeah, so I mean, apart from just being really enthusiastic and optimistic about the opportunity that they're joining for us, which I am naturally, I think that rubs off on people. Something I learned years ago was catch your teams doing good things.
Ah, okay.
So in management, it's quite common to just have one-to-ones with teams and focus on the negative, or only sit down with them when something's gone wrong.
Mm,
I always try to flip that and do the opposite, and just every day walking past somebody who's on the phone, listening in, just giving a bit of great feedback on what they've done. We use NPS scores with our clients, and quite
sure.
often a lot of our teams are called out by name. Libby helped me with this order, so just taking some time to say, look, thanks for that. You're doing the right thing, because it's people are busy, right? And if they're writing down your name particularly and remembering experience that they've had with you providing good service, that's exactly what we want. So
Yeah.
definitely calling out the good stuff, being with them, easier with people in the office, less easy with people working remotely.
Yeah. So how do you keep on top of managing and motivating people that work remotely then? Because that is a real challenge.
Yeah, and generally, if they're working remotely, they are disciplined, they're motivated, they're driven, and you trust them to do that. So
Hmm.
you
Sure.
have to have that trust in those roles. And again, you recognize people that you can trust to do that when you interview, and those that maybe you're worried about. So we've never had the problem with it. We have 5 or 6 people permanently from home in the sales team, and I find you've just got to have regular contact. Um, and with most people, I find it generally happens. We're talking every day. There's enough stuff going on. There's enough opportunities. There's enough, good ideas. We're having to have conversations every day. But I have worked with individuals that maybe find that less natural. They're happy in their own space, and they just want to
Sure.
get their head down for a week. And then,
Yeah.
I'm not one of those leaders that if I don't hear from someone, I suspect the worst. I'm not like that, but I will then just try and flip that and try and turn that around and encourage that more general conversation. You don't have to necessarily call about anything to do with work. Just checking
Oh
in.
no.
How's your family? For me personally, understanding individuals, knowing about their families, what their partners do, how many kids they've got, and then keep referring back to that every time I'm with them. How's everyone going? How's your wife? Just feels like there's a genuine interest. I mean, I am genuinely interested in it, but I think it makes people feel good.
Well, this is it, and this is a key element to retention as well, to
Mm.
staff retention. And I don't know if in other businesses you worked in, whether you've struggled with staff retention, but what do you think are the key elements to making sure that people stay and grow within the business?
Yeah, I mean, much of it is probably what I've said, really, trying to catch them, finding out the good stuff. There's multiple things, isn't there? It's like the vibe in the office, the culture. We want people to have fun. Part of our strategy with our sales approach to clients and our tone of voice is all about being an individual with your own character, but trying to make the experience fun as well as being that professional they can rely on.
Yeah.
So again, not always easy to train that in. You've kind of got to have that. You've got to have somebody who's got something about them anyway.
Hmm.
And then, your clients will recognize that. If you do, they'll recognize it as well. And
Sure.
sometimes, I've been presented with people who've turned up at interview, and initially, it's that first impression, isn't it? The first 3 seconds, you see something, you build a an impression in your mind. And you then have to challenge yourself to not, focus on that. You focus on what's inside.
Yeah, yeah.
But so many times I've been caught out, and I've actually really then enjoyed talking with this person or carrying the interview on, and it's turned out to recruitment. So sometimes you can shock yourself and kind of work through it like that.
It's amazing. There are some real high quality individuals out there, and if you can find these people that you can connect with and work with, and collaborate with,
Yeah,
that's far better than finding somebody that you just want to fill a space and get out there and in the car and go and talk to people. This
yeah,
collaboration is becoming more and more important in our sales teams. That
mm,
we're not isolated individuals anymore. We have to
yeah,
work together as a team to
yeah.
be as successful as we can do. So how do you make sure the communication, the collaboration between the remote sales team and the office
Mm.
work effectively as it can do?
Yeah, so when I've had bigger teams, so maybe 48, 50, which is a mix of internal and field-based teams, we've always pushed to get quarterly get-togethers. So, bringing the team down to head office if that's appropriate, or doing something out somewhere around the UK and getting the team together. They love catching up with the rest of the team that they don't see very often. And I remember that when I was working for a company in Winchester, I'd be based at home all year, and then every quarter I'd be down in the office for about 3 nights, 4 days.
Okay,
You really get to connect with those people, and you look forward to that. It's something special, isn't it? It's something
it is.
different.
Yeah.
So much as through the week you're getting on with your job, you don't have that colleague sort of stuff face
Mm.
to face to work through. So when we get our teams together, I really see that they love, they spark off each other, just catching up with those colleagues.
So how important do you think is the culture that you and the rest of the management team, leadership team have created
Yeah, massive.
in making that stuff happen?
Yeah, massive. And in certain businesses I've been in, the culture has been great. And so when we've come in, either myself or other leaders have come in, we focused heavily on culture, and for months at a time. That's all you talk about. How do
Mm.
we change this? What are the small things that we can all demonstrate walking around the business, checking in with people? Because maybe younger members of staff will emulate that. So if it's bad, they're going to emulate it. And if it's good, they're hopefully going to copy that as well. So I've seen some pretty poor leaders and founders of businesses that the culture isn't great. And that's where you see the high turnover,
Indeed.
because it is affecting the leadership team, and then it's affecting the managers, and then it's affecting the team. Much as it's not overt and people are talking about it, people feel it, I think. If that vibe and that culture isn't quite there, they recognize it, they see things, they pick up on it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think culture is one of the most essential things to get right in any team, but especially in a sales team where motivation is at the core of everything that we do. It
Yeah,
has to be a motivating environment and a comfortable, enjoyable environment. And people need to work for each other.
yeah,
You know, you've got people within your business who are not directly earning money from the clients in the same way as the sales team may be.
yeah,
And the sales team have a responsibility to go out there and find that business that feeds the whole company. And having that culture that says I work for you and you work for me and we work together
yeah,
is invaluable. Absolutely
yeah.
amazing. So how do you recognize development needs and within the sales team, and then how do you address those?
So, classically, I was trained as a first manager to regularly have those one-to-ones and performance reviews. And while, the wording, the names, the KPIs, the descriptions might have changed, fundamentally, you have to have appropriate check-in times with all of your team to talk about development and to
Mhm.
talk about training needs, and just to make sure that you're supporting them as much as possible. It's more important when you have somebody in on probation. You're always checking that, do they understand enough? Do they need to go back to their induction, spend a bit more time with that department,
Sure.
or understand that product range a bit better? But it shouldn't stop when probation's over. We should be constantly checking in, and sometimes, what it's like. You've been in a business 3 years, and you kind of carve out your own way of doing things and forget that you're drifting off the path you've been trained to do it
Yeah,
on.
yeah, absolutely.
Constantly checking in with people, not just when they're new, but ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've invested time and money with using my services to
Yeah,
develop your team.
yeah.
Um, Why did you get to the conclusion that you needed somebody from external to come in and help?
So a number of reasons. I think some of the team that we were talking about were maybe born and bred in that role, so they come into the business at a very young age. They haven't experienced work elsewhere, and so maybe with some individuals there was a little bit of reluctance to change. So, well, we've always just done this. We rely on new inquiries coming into the business. And I think those of us that have been in multiple sales roles in um, different industries, sectors, with different types of businesses and product ranges, we know that it's not necessarily like that. Well, that's fine. When the market's good, we might be busy.
Hmm.
When the market changes, you can't survive like that. So you've got to turn around. So we had a little bit of reluctance from those people that hadn't kind of got that wide commercial experience, and others that equally warmed to it because they felt they'd missed out on having some training. They used to enjoy going through development and reminding themselves of the skills and things they should be doing. So a whole mixture of that. But we just felt, I think I have a good steer on what a sales process looks like, but I'm not working in multiple businesses. I wasn't at the time, so my experience is limited to what I'm doing every day
Sure.
in this
Yeah, yeah.
business. And what we need is to sense check our views on what a process is and what good
Hmm.
development is with people like you who work in other companies who see it, who can bring us those
Yeah.
tips and that advice.
Well, this is what I see all over, is that great sales leaders expose their team to ideas from way outside of their own
Yeah,
industries, because
yeah,
there's so much good stuff out there that other
yeah,
people are doing that we may not have perceived. And it's also very easy just to get stuck in the same old rut that we've always done, because yes, it's always worked, but doesn't this mean to say it's going to work in the
yeah.
future? So how do you stay up to date with the way the sales world is changing, particularly to do with things like technology? Because technology is revolutionizing the way that we sell at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first heard about lead forensics, and how they can drill down into who's looking at your website and
Mhm.
provide that data, I mean, that was pretty mind-blowing, maybe 10, 15 years ago, but
Yeah.
it's constantly changing. And I think for us, the data is really important. We've just moved to a platform everyone probably knows, Power BI, which
Indeed. Yeah.
for us is slightly revolutionary because we have three different businesses on three different EPR systems. We have Sage 50 in one business, which really needs updating. We have Sage 200 in another, and we have a system called Merlin in our core business. We can't get easily data out of those and look at it consistently as a team on a weekly basis. So Power BI will let us do that. It will dive into each of those systems and present it in the same format on
Yeah.
a dashboard. So that's going to be great for us because we have been on a bit of a lag. We haven't been able to react to results changing because we haven't seen them quick enough.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll get these, sales numbers updated 8 times a day. So I think that's but personally, how do I keep up on top of stuff? I think following groups on LinkedIn, subscribing to different sales experts is always useful, to find out what technologies and how people are changing their sales teams. But ultimately, I believe, in the service sectors, which I've mainly spent my time in and working in consultative sales processes, you need people and people want people.
Yeah. And
Um,
they always will.
yes.
Absolutely always will.
Yeah.
I truly believe that technology is really only going to help us in the sales environment in terms of measurement. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Analyzing trends, definitely, and creating contact. But once
Yeah.
we've got that contact, it has to be human.
Yeah.
It really does. No matter however good AI gets, it's still always going to be human, which is great for the likes of you and me. Um, so, in terms of market conditions and changes, what can you see coming up in your market that you're going to need to adapt to?
And so we have a strategy to deal with our suppliers and treat them like clients in a way. So what that's always done is got us close to what's going on in the market. And again,
Mhm.
we're buying from glass manufacturers across the world. We're just seeing our view of the world, but they're out dealing with multiple businesses, direct to food producers and drink producers, and to wholesale distributors, a bit like us, I
Sure.
suppose.
Yeah.
So, getting close, getting a feel for the market from all of those is really important. So we do that regularly. We join trade associations, businesses that represent the industries we're in. So British Glass, for instance, who are really helpful on stuff like the forthcoming packaging tax and how that's going to affect our clients. Any other associations, packaging groups, we find that really useful because you get a dialogue of what's happening in the market. So we know what we're seeing in the market, but you've always got to balance that with, is this just us? Is it happening elsewhere?
Sure.
Maybe we're doing things great, maybe we're not. You won't know that until you go out and find out.
It's fascinating, and keeping your finger on the pulse of these things is so vital because, again, when you think about the way technology's influenced industry, we can make changes so quickly
Yeah.
that are going to have an impact on the marketplace, and
Yeah.
you've got to keep up to date with all of it, no matter what it is we're selling. But sometimes we end up with some problems, and
Mm.
there are always challenges, particularly in a role like yours. How do you deal with slumps, with sales slumps? Because they come around from
Yeah.
time to time.
Yeah.
When you got low sales activity, people are a little bit, the morale's down a bit,
Mm.
um, but there are new opportunities out there, but sometimes the motivation's not there because we just kind of get ourselves in a little bit of a rut and a bit of a
Yeah.
depression about the fact that
Mm.
sales are down. How do you deal with all that?
So again, depending on the individual, so I can think of those driven, really keen salespeople who they will be telling you when the slump is coming. You don't have to wait. They'll make sure before it happens, and then we'll be talking about, well, how do we avoid that? And there's others that then just go quiet and the slump happens, and you're having to talk to them about the slump and what we're going to do about it. So again, two different approaches on those, but I think with any type of individual in that situation, my role is to focus on what is possible. So, every single day is a new opportunity, isn't it? It doesn't matter
Oh,
what happened yesterday. We could have had a contract pull, lose some business, but today we can find some new stuff. And we're always looking for the opportunities, and we're constantly talking with our BDMs every week about what's out there. And I set up a call with my BDMs on a Friday at 9:15, and we have 6 of us, and it's for about 30 minutes. We just go around the group, right? Who have you seen this week? What are the opportunities? What's happening next week? And because we work across sectors that we will have experience in, normally one of us has got a contact in the business that we're going to see or has some
sure.
history.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people are finding that really useful to share that knowledge, but also it just lifts a bit of a buzz. And if one's done a great deal this week, it maybe just pushes somebody else, to try and close something a bit sooner next week. So they get that glory on the call.
Yeah, fabulous. Is there a role for forecasting in identifying future sales slumps?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. Something we haven't quite got to as a business. We have our annual budget, our target effectively. Um, what's across all the sectors, but what we should be doing is reforecasting kind of every 4 to 6 weeks and just looking at, are we on track with that? If we're not, do we need to realign? Do we need to put resource elsewhere? Which markets are growing? We have 8 to 10 people in sort of 6 to 7 different sectors, so should we pull resource out of one and put it in somewhere else, depending
Sure.
on
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a fascinating thing. Forecasting, whilst it's not an absolute exact science, it can really tell you which way the wind is about to blow,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. Now, one thing I'm really quite curious about is, I mean, we know each other, we've known each other for years,
Yeah.
and you have a busy life. So you have family, you have 3 companies within your group that you're running, you've got a large sales team. How do you keep yourself motivated, and how do you prevent yourself from burning out with it all?
Yeah. Again, easy to say, hard to do some of this, but
Yeah.
really getting on top of prioritizing work is important. So I picked up something at a networking group I attend, something called Get Things Done, so GTD.
Oh
So
yeah. Okay.
the rationale is every morning before you do anything else, and it's so tempting just to pick up the phone and start looking at emails, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So GTD forces you to use a template, and you break down all the stuff that's either in your head, or it's in your inbox, or it's on your messages, or it's got to be done, and you prioritize it into, this needs to be done today, this is in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
these things I'm waiting for other people, so I can't progress until I've heard back.
Got it.
So it's almost like every single day, if you just offload everything you're thinking about that has to be done, you don't have to worry about it. It's there. And I have this document open every single day, and I'm kind of aware of where we are with it. But it's a really good strategy to just get on top of things, and then you can prioritize stuff. If you don't break it down like that, you've just got this weight of all the stuff you're dealing with. And some of it's
Sure.
urgent, some of it's really important, some of it's scary. That's overwhelming. You have to break it down and get it off your head and think, right, I've got that there. I know I'm going to get to it. I'm not going to forget it. I'll get to it at some point. So I find that really good. What else? So personally, I really enjoy working in different locations. So the worst thought for me is either being sat at this desk 5 days a week or sat at a desk in Bristol 5 days a week. Doesn't matter. And the same journey 5 times a week, that's a bit of a killer for motivation for me. So I'm really motivated by working in multiple locations with different people. It really drives me forward and keeps me, really excited about what we're doing. So luckily we have 3 different offices, so that helps with that. Well, we have 4 actually, we have one in Leeds as well. We have client meetings. So if my week is made up of multiple different things, and even working at home here on a Friday, I'll be working out somewhere else this afternoon just to break it up a bit.
Sure. Yeah.
So that works for me. I like resetting by having a tiny break, traveling, doing that, carrying on. So yeah, those are things that work for me.
Makes a lot of sense. Fantastic. So the last thing I really wanted to talk about was the future of sales.
Okay.
We talked a lot about what you do now and what you've done in the past and how things happen now. What do you see as the new trends in sales? What do you think is coming that we need to adapt as salespeople to be effective?
Yeah, so I think data is really, really useful. I think, looking at what we know about marketplaces, clients, trends, and stuff, I think still feels like we're in a world where you have to just pay a company to provide this data. But I think there's going to be more clever ways of doing that. Even using AI to think about new markets we want to work in. How would a business entering this market approach a decision maker? It's quite incredible what comes back, and sometimes you're aligned with that thinking, you're confirming your ideas, and sometimes it's coming up with ideas that you haven't thought of. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's really useful stuff like that. I don't think I ever want AI dealing with my clients, however technical it gets, but if it can inform our teams and help us, strategize, and that there's a great place for it.
Well, you see, I think that's where the biggest change in sales is going to be over the next number of years. It used to be, I mean, I've been in sales for 38 years, and there's the old adage, you throw enough mud at the wall, some of it's going to stick. I think we've now got the tools to be so much more targeted, so much more careful with our time, because we've got this information that can take this whole marketplace and drill it down into, here are our key opportunities. Even things like using email marketing and focusing on following up the people who are clicking is a very simple way of taking that big market and moving it down to something much more targeted and more time efficient.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's just going to get better and better with the data that we've got available to us, which will make the team more efficient. And of course, the more efficient, more productive they are, more growth we get out of them.
I'm also quite keen to work on areas of data sharing with clients. So when we, work very closely with our biggest clients and we contract over multiple years, I want systems and data be accessible by both teams and make it easy for everyone. So we do that in a small way at the moment. We share documents carefully that is going to enable our clients to forecast and our teams to pick that up. And then just confirm it on a conversation. So there's probably better ways of doing that, and maybe portals that clients can log on to and stuff like that will be helpful to us in the future.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I think it's quite an exciting thing. And I also think it's going to breed a whole new generation of salespeople who are totally data driven.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting. So just finally then, let's say somebody comes to you who's really good at sales, been in sales quite a long time, and they'd love to become some kind of sales leader, going up the rungs from sales manager to sales director. What do you think the best advice is that you could give them?
So I touched on it earlier. I think, subscribing to different experts and groups, so using LinkedIn, any other kind of sales leadership groups that you can kind of get theories and views from is going to be really good. I'm a big believer in surround yourself but with people that you want to be like. So I definitely did that as a young manager, as a first-time manager. I was questioning, enthusiastic, asking people how they deal with certain situations. Maybe conflict when you're new as a manager. That's one of the toughest things to get your head around.
Sure, yeah.
And again, I just picked up tips like, you're the manager, you have to have the olive branch out every time, right? That's your role. It's not about ego. It's not about what you feel is right or wrong. Your role is to get the best out of your team. So if that means you're the one going, okay, let's talk about this, how are we going to make it work? That's your role. So the more time you can spend with people like that, not just necessarily in your business, but at networking events and other places, that's the right way to do it. And if you've got great leaders in your business, ask to shadow them, ask to sit in on meetings, ask to go to sales meetings, team meetings, just watch so you can start to emulate those behaviors, the good stuff that you see.
Fabulous. Did you struggle with the transition from doing to managing? Because managing people is a totally different skill.
Yeah, I did. And, it was tricky because, we had we were all a field-based team. There's about 6 of us. Our manager moved to New Zealand, so we recruited for a new one. I got the role. So suddenly I was a manager amongst my peers. And so while, it's tough trying to get your head around, does the relationship need to change? Well, yeah, of course it does. But how do you try and be genuine? And you've got 5 people looking at you going, are you going to change now? Are you going to be different to how you've been? So it's really important to be yourself, and if you've been genuine in your role, just carry that forward. But it does have to change. So what I struggled with was mostly those challenging conversations, because the strong, bold salespeople will make it difficult for you to sit down and give them feedback if they're not welcoming that.
Absolutely.
I had situations where I'd go out for a coaching day with my team member, and you get straight back in the car and you turn the car on, put the radio on, and do anything but talk about the meeting. So we had to kind of carefully go, okay, should we maybe stop and have coffee and let's just have a chat about how that went.
just drown out the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're not getting a chance to coach me, Billy. Don't do it.
See, that was the most difficult thing for me, was transitioning from being total control of my own destiny to now my destiny being dependent on 22 people that I was managing. And for me, I think the best advice that you can give anybody, that I could give anybody moving from sales into management, is to spend as much time as you can understanding the skills of a manager before making the transition. And when you are invited to make that transition, ensure that the sales leaders who are helping you up that ladder are also putting in place the training, the development, the mentoring to help you become a manager, because it's so different to what you've done before.
Yeah. And if you've got, other people in the roles that you're stepping into, just again, bounce off them all the time. Just run scenarios by them. How, if you had this in your team, how did you deal with it? How would you deal with this situation? Get those ideas.
It's a fascinating subject. It really is. Well, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time, Billy. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I hope whoever's watching this finds it incredibly useful, and as I have found it incredibly useful. And I would say to everybody out there, if you're looking for packaging, if you're looking for glass, if you're looking for plastic, if you're looking for cans, if you're looking for paper bags, if you're looking for machinery to put it all together, Rawlings Group, Billy Thurlow, he's the man. You need to go and see him. Thanks again, Billy, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.